Magic makers. Today I am talking to Miss Kristi Bernstein. So I want you to know that she has the distinctive honor of just being an awesome all-around lady, but she has the distinctive honor of being my very first online client. For years, I only work with people in person. And then I started working online, and Kristi was my very, very, very first client. And she was my client for over a decade. And she's just super awesome. She started working with me because she's in one of the branches of the military, and they still require you to weigh in. And so she was doing it in an insane way, and she was looking for a way to have sanity and hit her weigh-in goals. And so over the years, I swear, like, she's old enough to, I think of her as my child, but it was biologically impossible for her to be my child. But I absolutely, positively adore her, and you will adore her too. Welcome, Kristi, to the show.
Thank you, Kim. Thanks for having me. This is such an honor. And I had no idea I was your first online client.
Yes, you were.
I thought I was just jumping into the mega machine.
No.
That was Kathy Savage Fitness.
Yeah, no, so I was a client of Kathy's for decades. And then she asked me to be a coach, and you were the very first client that I had when I became a coach.
I did not know that.
Yeah. See, a little trivia. So actually Kristi was the first person that I worked with that didn't have a competition goal. And I loved that, because it was like, okay, how do we make this a lifestyle for her? And so Kristi, like you've shared with me before, like, you would come to like April and October, like still every time April and October come, I think about you, and I'm like, okay, we got to get her there. We gotta have her, pass her physical so she can stay in the Coast Guard. And we were just talking, Kristi, tell people how many years you've been. Oh, I said it. Well,
it's okay. It's all okay. Right. It's all good.
All right. So she's been in the Coast Guard for what? How many years?
Including school, 28 years.
28 years. Have you guys done anything for 28 years? I mean, besides live? Like, I was just like, I haven't had one job for, I think the longest job I've had is this. I've been doing this on my own for over a decade. So that's my longest that I have been doing something. So that just blows my mind. And so, Kristi, I remember we've had these conversations for years. So before you started working with me, like, what were some of the crazy things you did to make sure you hit your weigh-in?
Oh gosh, Kim. Some of this is embarrassing to admit, but the normal, I call it normal at the time, 4-hour cardio sessions per day.
Mm-hmm.
The eating less than 800 calories a day.
Yep.
At least. What else? I mean, it was exhausting. It's exhausting just to think about it. Not eating food groups, just cutting them out for months and months at a time. And
you have a very physical job. Like, it's not like you are always, some days you are sitting at a desk, but other days you got to walk around the base, you got to walk around ships. So like, how was your energy level and your mood back then?
Oh, not great. Not great. My husband, I think, calls it the crazy years.
Well, I laugh because I'm sure, everyone, is on the same cycle in the Coast Guard, that like April and October are the times that you're always, going up for your physical fitness part. And I'm sure during the 6 months, 3 months prior, everybody was just a hot mess.
Well, it's usually the month prior, because everyone waited right up until the month before or the month of, because you had the entire month of April or October. And it's craziness. It's, I think the craziest thing, I found this in Texas, where you could do these like full body wraps. That I think I did that a few times just to take an extra inch or two off, which is complete madness. You have
complete madness.
Yeah. Saunas. Locking yourself in the bathroom with the hot water going.
Or those plastic, like they look like trash
plastic
bags.
Suits. I never went the plastic trash bag route, but I did go with like the sweatshirt and sweatpants, and that's just not me at all. So if you saw me on the spin bike with sweatpants and a sweatshirt
and a heater.
Yeah.
Don't look the other way. Don't judge.
Yeah, Kim, I was doing, hot yoga and hot cardio before it was even a class.
Right. You're like, I invented it and I'm pissed that I didn't capitalize on it.
Yeah.
Are you still doing yoga? I know that was like a big thing for you.
A little bit, but no, I haven't continued that over here in LA. Maybe when I go back to Maryland, but that's a whole different discussion about Bikram and leadership and principles and whole different thing.
All right. So we're going to put a pin in that.
Yeah, just put a pin in that. When you want to talk leadership, we can, and diversity, equity, and inclusion and all of that good stuff. We'll just put a pin in hot yoga.
Yeah. So Kristi came to me and she goes, look, she's like, this is what happens. Like every April, I have to either step on a scale or get measured. And then it happens again 6 months later. So she's like, this is my life. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But how do we take the crazy out of that? How do we suck the hot spin yoga out of her life? And so when we started working together, we're like, how do we just start like making it so that it's her life? Right. And so that was like kind of, our first thing was like unlocking like freaking diet behavior so that we weren't sprinting to the finish line every single time. And so, I originally treated her like a competitor. I was like, okay, give me a date. And she's like, well, that's not how it works. Or like they say April, and then probably around March, I get a quasi date. And I'm like, okay, let's just shoot for the 15th of the month. And so that way we know we can count back. And so I basically treated her like a competitor. I'm like, all right, we're going to start 3 months out. And she was like, 3 months. Like, oh, that's such a lot.
That's a lot of cardio. That's a lot of 4-hour cardio days.
Right. She's like, I'm going to have to look at my schedule. And so the first thing was like, how do we try to keep that like, crazy? Because I mean, everyone listening here, if you haven't done a hour plus cardio session, have you done cardio? I mean,
but Kim, I think it's helpful to add that it wasn't like I wasn't working out and then starting this was a workout every single day. Yeah, it's the military workout, 5 o'clock in the morning, workout for at least an hour.
Right. Doing all the crazy things that you do in the military. Like they're like, yeah, you are going to do burpees and then we're going to run for 3 miles and then we're going to do push-ups and then we're going to do all other crazy shit. And then you're going to go do your active job.
Yep. And then you're probably going to add a second workout. You're going to go to sports day at the end of the day.
Right. And then you're like, you know what? It's March. I'm going to get weighed in. So I should probably throw in an extra cardio. I'm probably just going to, like you said, hop on a spin bike because I've already been on my feet all day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier to hop on a bike.
I'm not going to do another run. I'll just jump on the spin bike.
Yeah. I'll hop on the spin bike or hop on the row or something that's seated because, I'm tired. And no, and like I say this and I'm laughing because I know people listening here, they have done the same thing. Like, they're like, okay, in the morning, I'm going to do an hour on the step mill, then come back and maybe it's a spin class, maybe it's a boot camp class. We've all done that. And we're on top of whatever other workout that you're doing because we think more is better. And so what ends up happening is that more is more. And then, you end up, you are now, at what point did you know you had PCOS?
Intuitively, I think I knew I had it probably about 3 years before I started working with you. It just was, it went undiagnosed for a good, so PCOS turned into insulin resistance, turned into hypothyroid, turned into adrenal fatigue, turned into, so that went on for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Undiagnosed.
Yeah. And so when you first, when I first looked at Kristi, I'm like, all right, I'm like, you're doing all this stuff, like something's going on. Right. So it was just a matter of, us kind of like, she's an onion, like, and if you know anything about PCOS or insulin resistance, it's an onion. It's like, you are always just trying to get back to the root cause. And I know for many people listening here, you might be struggling with both PCOS, insulin resistance. And a lot of it has to do with our crazy exercise, our crazy restrictions of our food, because, it all comes down to balance in our body.
And I think stress as well.
Oh, for sure.
Because I was on board ships, and we were working all kinds of crazy hours, sometimes up all night.
Yeah.
Getting 2 to 3 hours of sleep each night.
And then also when you were doing, you were like the on-call command, and like you would have to like,
Yep.
you would be like, I'm going to have a good night's sleep. And then you'd get that call and you're like, could it be a 15-minute call, or could it be, we're there all night?
Yep. And then I worked in a command center where I had the night watch for a month at a time, but then someone would get sick and you'd have to take their day watch. So it would be an immediate flipping of your circadian rhythm. Yeah, messing with your circadian rhythm constantly. So,
it's, I always I have clients who are nurses, and I never understood that they'll do the similar thing that you do. Like they'll work a month days, and then they'll only be given like 48 hours, maybe 36 hours to flip to night. And I'm like,
disastrous for your body.
And I'm like, you guys are in the medical field. You have to understand that it is not like a light switch for you to go from like working at 7 a.m. to then all of a sudden working at 7 p.m. It doesn't work that way. And I'm just like, for everyone who's has those kind of like shifty jobs, I'm like, 2 snaps up and a tic-tac to you. Like I would be a mess for months on end if I had to like do that flip-flop all the time.
Yeah, it's madness. And I think back to that time, and there weren't podcasts back then that talked about sleep hygiene and talked about, blue light, and talked about, all of the things that at least I subscribed to those podcasts and listen to it. But back then, 15, 20 years ago, that wasn't part of the conversation. So
no, I remember when I first started working out, it was like, you sleep when you're dead. Like there was like, sleep wasn't like even part of the equation. It was like, work hard, rest. Who needs rest? And I remember you were the first person to tell me that, how in your house, like was it on a timer that you have like your lights?
On a timer. I had some, I went from regular lights, like LCDs to blue or to red light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you were the first person who told me about this. And then I went and I stayed in an Airbnb, and it did the same thing. And it was like and of course, like, in an Airbnb, they write down all the stuff. Uh-huh. And then, so I'm like sitting there, and then all of a sudden it wasn't as like, I thought it would be more gradual, but it was like, literally like, it was like the bright light. And then I'm like, it was red. And I was like, did I break something? Like, I didn't like, I'm like, did something like, I flip a switch? Like, and then finally, like the next day, like I called the guy. I'm like, hey, just so you know, the lights got weird. He's like, oh, I forgot to tell you. And I'm like, because I was like, I'm just sitting here on the couch. Like, how could I break something?
I am not sure what what anyone else in the apartment complex was thinking when all of a sudden my window turned to red, all red inside.
I know. They were like, she's in Amsterdam.
Yeah, I don't know. But it was, and again, this was before you could buy blue blocking glasses too. So
yeah,
now you can buy glasses. You don't have to change every light bulb in your house.
But I think it also like, it creates that like cozy feeling to like start to like get you to like chill out in order to go to bed. And I know that a lot of people, like they take for granted bedtime. Like I know that, like, because especially like you come out for 12-hour shift, like you're just like, I'm free, and you're just probably all like hopped up to like not be where you were. Mm-hmm. And especially when you're working on the boat, you're like, oh my God, I'm on land, this is fabulous.
Yeah. And there's a lot of work hard, play hard in the military writ large, and especially in the Coast Guard. So there's I can't say that I was actually taking care of myself when we got back. So all of that just kind of added up.
Yeah. And
a perfect storm.
And what you just described, even if you weren't in the military, I see it all the time. Like, you have a more than 40-hour a week job. You might have kids, you might have family members, you might have so many other moving parts in your life that for you, sleep is decadent. You're like, oh, if I sleep, then I can't do in your laundry list of things of why you can't sleep. Or, I have a client, she she's like, I do so much for every other person. The last thing I wanted, she's like, me sitting on my couch and watching Netflix, that's my me time. And if that cuts into me sleeping, so be it. And I, it's like, I get it. I know what it's like that sometimes I'm just running all day that I just want to just sit. And you're like, sleeping, is that resting? Like you want to have like active rest. And I get that. And for many people who are listening here, sleep is really challenging. And sleep, I have 2 podcasts, and it's number 1 and number 2, the 2 sleep podcasts that I have. And then stress manager is the 3rd. So y'all need to sleep and manage y'all stress. So as you know, as we were working together, one of the things we really worked on is like, how do we just like even you out? So there's not this big volume before we get to weigh-in time. So what do you think some of the results that you had with working with me?
So Kim, first I wanted to say I'm just so grateful for you, because I think you're the reason I'm still in the Coast Guard today. Yeah.
And I can't swim.
You're gonna make me cry, but
you're gonna make me cry.
But I think balance. If I could summarize it, I would say it's balance. That more is, less is more sometimes.
Yes.
And more food can sometimes lead to,
less insanity.
Less. I mean, imagine that. So,
right.
You completely flipped the equation on me. And then consistency would be the second one. And I probably still struggle with that a little bit, but I think balance and consistency would be how I would characterize all of your lessons weekly.
But here's the thing, like the fact that like I always tell people, and I was so funny, I was on a call yesterday and I was like, even though we're not going to get it right all the time, it's the recognition. Like before, the recognition would have gone for like a few months. Now you're like, shit. All right. It's a few days. I haven't been consistent. All right. I know I got to get back. I know I have to get back. And even when you were checking in with me, you'd be like, I know I haven't been consistent, but this is how I'm going to get back. And it was just like, you would just already like know how to self-correct yourself. And for so many people, that's huge. Like you want these, like, I know, I get it. Everyone wants these changes to be like cataclysmic, like it's a nuclear bomb goes off, but the changes are really subtle and it's really small. And it's like your spiral could last weeks, days, months. But if your spiral starts to last like a couple of days, you're like, wait, hang on, back it up. I got to get back on track. And it doesn't have to be like clean. It could be like, yeah, I'm gonna have fun food. I mean, for you, I was like, for the love of God, have something fun. Yeah. I'm like, I don't care what it is, just have something fun. Because it's like, that's I call it like the volcano. Like the volcano like puts all its pressure here, and you have like one thing, and then all of a sudden you're like, right? Like you like to go on vacation. Like you are like a cruise junkie. Like I think you've been on more cruises than anyone I've ever known. And I laugh because you're in the freaking Coast Guard.
Well, Kim, I love being on ships where I don't have to work.
Oh, okay. Because I always thought it was interesting because one of my best friends, her husband, Navy SEAL, 25 years, and she always wanted to go on a cruise. And he's like, no, no, I've been on a boat too much. I can't get on a cruise.
No, I'm the opposite. I love being out on the water. I love being in and around the ocean. And and if I don't have to work while I'm doing it, that's bone, and they're gonna feed me. And I don't have to do anything. I mean, and they're gonna take me from place to place like a floating hotel. It's perfect.
I know. One of my husband's best friend, he just his dream vacation was to take the QE2 from London to New York, and they just finished. I think they're coming back in the next couple of days. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I could be in the middle of the ocean for, I don't even know how long it takes now. Like, I'm like, I know it doesn't take months. So in my head, I'm like, does it take a week? I don't know. Do you know? Does it take a week?
I think that particular cruise is a week. Yep.
So So it's like 5 days in the middle of the ocean.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Oh my God.
It's so wonderful.
In my head, I would be thinking Titanic. I've never seen the movie, but I know the outcome. I know the ending. Everyone does. So yeah, that would be my first thought. I would be like, I could
tell you how the Coast Guard prevents the next Titanic, but that's a whole nother separate podcast in and of itself too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, totally. Another podcast. Yeah. Because I'm into like the whole true crimey thing. So yeah, maybe that's the next podcast I start. But yeah, that would freak me out being that far out of ocean, out to sea. Because like no one can really save you, can they?
Oh, they can.
Okay.
That is our primary job. Yeah.
All right. So
there's a whole system set up for that.
All right. So okay. So now I can reconsider it. Before it was not even a thought. Now I can reconsider it. All right. All right. Good. I mean, my first thing is safety. I mean, I did get on a very small plane this year to go to Tortola. I was not told that it was going to be a very small plane. It is
one of my favorite places in the
Tortola?
Caribbean.
Yeah. I had never been. I did go on a cruise. And we went to Virgin Gorda, but we never went to Tortola. And it is a very beautiful place.
It's gorgeous.
But in order to get there, you have to get on a plane where everyone has to get weighed, and they put you on the plane by weight. So I sat right behind the pilot. I could see everything, a little freaked out. And I was like, you know how to work this thing. And he's like, if we crash, he goes, we're buoyant enough to float. I was like, okay. And he goes, but underneath your seat is a life raft. So you're good. I'm like, should I put it on now? He's like, no. I don't do small planes. I
don't like small planes either.
Give me a 3x3 plane. I am like, calm. That's like 1 by 1. I'm like, holy crap. Buddy Holly is calling my name. And he's like, it was only going to be a 15-minute flight. All right. So the one thing I've seen as we've worked together, this is like the evolution, right? Like you're this great leader in the Coast Guard, and now you do needlepoint.
Yes.
And like you and your sister have started this whole like Etsy like needlepoint business.
Well, my sister is into beading. And so, but we started a YouTube video in the needlepoint and cross stitching. It's called Floss Tube. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun building that business. That was kind of it started pre-COVID, but I would say I had a little bit more time to put into it.
Yeah.
During COVID timeframe. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like where else could you go? You were like, work, home. And you're like, the Coast Guard didn't really shut down. We're kind of essential.
Yeah, we were still doing our thing, but we were working from home a little bit more than we would normally do. But that was just the luxury of my particular position.
Right.
Just building a business has been just very fascinating, very interesting. I hand it to every small business owner because you're everything, everyone. Most people don't have other people to help. So you're the marketing person, you're the IT support, you're
customer service.
You're the customer service. You're the so I appreciate everyone who's trying to put together a small business and run it. It's been a lot of fun and really fascinating.
And so, Kristi, for the people who are cross stitchers or embroiderers, I don't know the right terminology. Where can they find your YouTube? Your YouTube is just called Floss Vision?
Nope. It's a Floss Tube video, but my company is Salty Stitcher Designs, and my YouTube handle is Salty Stitcher.
Perfect.
So I am there, and I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, and my website is saltystitcherdesigns.com. So
Perfect. So yeah, so
yeah.
if you are out there, I mean, I have another client. She's a very like knitting. She's like a huge knitter. Like you give her like multiple skeins of yarn, and she's like, I could be here all night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a wonderful stress release.
Well, that's what I was about to say for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing craft. I think the military uses knitting, crochet, cross stitch, or any type of needlepoint for to help with PTSD.
Yeah.
Very meditative type of craft. So,
And I feel like it's, it's because like, I feel like with knitting, depending on what you're knitting, it could be this big thing, but like with like, cross stitch, like, depending on how big you make it, you're like, it's easy to put in a bag and take with you anywhere.
yep, it is. I love that, and also I started cross stitching. Well, I started cross stitching a long time ago. I think when I was 16 years old, but really got into it in just during the high stress jobs where I would come home and the only thing that could turn my brain off is either a good workout or just sitting down and cross stitching. So it's been real nice stress release, and then I began designing patterns, and didn't want them to just sit on my shelf. So I decided to share them with the world. And then
Who knew?
who knew?
And
Yeah.
that's what I always love about those like serendipity moments where you're just like, well, I don't know if they're any good. And then you put it out there and people are like, this is awesome. And you're like, okay. Like you had no.
Yeah, someone finished a cross stitch of mine just the other day and posted it, and I saw it and I'm like, oh my God. It was very interesting to see your own designs out there in the wild.
Right. Because especially like in your mind, this is how it looked. And then someone else interpreted it, and then someone else interpreted it. And you're just like, whoa, it's just like it's such a organic thing that you're just like, wow, I would have never thought about those colors, or like I would have never thought to like, whatever the subtlenesses they bring to the pattern, you were like, wow, that's just so cool.
There's so many artists out there, and they make it better, which is it's really wonderful to see. Yeah, so I absolutely love the community. I love the art aspect of it. I love the business side of the house. So it's just been a lot of fun the last couple of years.
Yeah. And I like fun for you because like, you have a very high stress job. And so, I was always trying to help you find outlets to just like have an outlet so that it wasn't like work, come home. Cause Kristi moved probably I think 3 or 4 times. Cause you started in Houston, then you moved to
started in Miami, moved to DC, then to Philadelphia.
And then here.
Oh no, I was in Texas for a time. Yeah.
Texas.
And now Los Angeles.
Yeah. So it's like, and so as she moved, like you have to like, pack up all your crap and then make new friends at the base, make new friends. And I just always was like, you need an outlet other than like your cats. I mean, your cats are fabulous.
Cats are fabulous.
One time Kristi was driving by herself from Texas to Maryland or DC.
Yeah, Maryland.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be so nervous about you. You have to check in with me because I'm like, what if someone kidnaps you? And she's like, no one's gonna kidnap me. I'm like, well, I don't know. And so she's like, I have the cat. I was like, I have a cat. That's gonna save her from the kidnappers. I don't know if anyone has an attack cat, please let me know because I have never seen an attack cat.
Lady Bird has traveled from Texas to Maryland, and then now she has traveled cross country from Maryland to or Philadelphia to Los Angeles. So she's a perfect travel companion.
Now, did you drive with her or did you put her on the plane?
No, I drove with her.
You drove. So you drove cross country? By yourself? No, I had a friend. Okay. All right. Yeah. I was like, how did I not know this? I'm like, I would have known that. Because I would have had you check in with me. See, I told you, she's like my kid. See, everyone's like, oh, well, I'm like, I tell people I don't have kids. I'm like, well, I don't technically have kids that I've birthed, but I have kids that I've adopted over the years. They might be older than what could normally be my kid, but I do have children that I've adopted, and that don't live with me. So that's the perfect kid, just so you know. And you don't have to potty train them or pay for their college. So I win all around.
All around.
And I can use the F word with them and they aren't offended by it. Or child services is going to be called.
Well, I would say that that would be, you know, if I had to mention a third thing, is that you were always very straightforward. And I appreciated that, you know, with, I appreciated the radical candor. Because the last thing I think I needed was someone just to, you know, not waste my time, because it wasn't a waste of time at all, but,
I know
but
exactly
just
what you
someone
mean.
to draw it out, delay. And I appreciated your candor with what was going on and what you were seeing, because no one else is going to tell you.
No, and you know, I always feel like I vibe well with people who are not Americans and military, because in the military they don't have time. Like if I'm about to attack a hill, I don't have time to get your buy-in and see how you feel. It's like, okay, guys, that hill over there, we're going to run up it and we're going to do something on the top of the hill. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Like there's no like, you know, how are you feeling, Kristi, about this? What's your thoughts? Like there's none of that. There's no like a good friend of mine says, I have no social foreplay. Because I was like,
no.
In an email, like my goal is I just want to get back to you. And I want you to be able to look at the email and just be like, what am I supposed to do? Like that was always my goal. It was like, this is, okay, Kristi, you told me you did these 3 things. Okay. Add 1 more to this, do 2 of this, and stop doing that. Like, I just wanted it to just be like, okay, I don't have to take second guess. There doesn't have to be this back and forth. It's like, all right, I can put this on my fridge and know exactly what I should be doing.
Yeah, if I wanted that kind of talk, I'd call my mom, right? But that's not the purpose of any of this. The purpose is to get better, to do better, to know better, and then do better. And so I appreciated that.
It's so funny. I laugh and you're like, oh, if I wanted that kind of talk, I'd call my mom. Like, my mom is like the queen of tough love. I mean, over the years, she's softened a bit, but I remember I would come home and be like, oh, so-and-so was mean to me. And she'd be like, what'd you do about it? So I guess I'm going to have to do something about it. Like,
maybe mom was not the right example. I'd call, I'd call someone who would, tell me what I wanted to hear.
Because like I wanted that kind of mom, but my mom was totally, but now I look back at my mom being that way. And I look at now like millennial parents who like literally like if the kid they get a B on their homework, they're marching to the teacher. Why'd you give Jimmy a B? And the teacher's like, where's Jimmy? Why am I talking to the mom or the dad? So, she was ahead of her time.
Yeah, well, I don't want people around me that are going to tell me what I want to hear.
No,
I need people around me who are going to challenge my thinking and challenge the way of doing business if it makes sense. And you provided that for me, so I appreciate that.
No, and I love that, because I laugh at like when I've running these interviews for the last probably 4 months now, and I always laugh at what people like the takeaway, and everyone has said what you just said. They're like, every time you communicated with me, I knew exactly what I was supposed to do. Like there was you're like maybe 1 in 10 emails. I was like, what does she mean by that? And then when I read it back, I'm like, oh, I was typing too fast. Like I was like, yeah, this makes no sense because I was typing too fast. But I know that when I was getting coached, my coach was very much the same way. She was like, she was a nurse practitioner, the coach that I had. And, you go to the doctor's not sitting there having long conversations with you. He's like, all right, take 2 of these. And if you don't feel well, call me back. Get out. Like they have 15, 20 minutes to work with you before they kick you out.
I think it's 7.5.
Yeah. And it's like, they're like, they're get in, get out. Like, I think your whole appointment lasts 15 minutes. Like that's like your entire appointment. And that includes them like testing all the things they test in that 15 minutes. Like I'm waiting for the day, like, you know, the nurse comes in with like the clock and it's like, let's go. But Kristi, this has just been absolutely fabulous. And I thank you so much. One, I just enjoy seeing you. I haven't seen you and I'm so grateful just to see your face and hear your voice. But I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this with me. And if you guys are cross stitchers or even thinking about cross stitching, I'm like, I don't think it's a hard thing to start. Look up her Salty Stitcher and you got a great pattern to start. And it's from all of her travels all over the world. This chick has gone like pretty much everywhere on the planet, and except for Antarctica. Have you?
Not yet. That's in the plans.
Well, because it's probably on a cruise. Because I mean, why would
you know me so well?
Well, I mean, there's only like what, the ice hotel there. Like you could stay like maybe like 48 hours before you freeze your balls off. So Kristi, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you, Kim. It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. So ladies, look her up. And if you've enjoyed this show, do me a favor, give me a review on Apple iTunes. It helps. And I read every single one of them. And I love hearing from you. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day and I'll talk to you next week.